Hello and welcome again to One Simple Recipe, where we're hoping to get you one step closer to better health. It's good to be back again. I'm Judy Mateski with Athens Nutrition. I am a culinary nutritionist as well as a registered dietitian, so I love to bring you some healthy recipes that also taste really good. Today it's all about tofu. We're going to do grilled cheese tofu. So this is fabulous for anybody who's never really ventured into the world of tofu. This is for you because I think you're going to love it. And for those of that are already using tofu, maybe this is something a little bit different. As well as for all of my clients who are really being a lot more mindful around your carbohydrate intake because of the blood sugar that we're trying to manage. This one's for you as well because it sans the bread. There's no bread, right? This is just grilled tofu. All right, so grilled cheese tofu. All right, so let's get started. I'll talk about some of the ingredients as we go through this because I'm not going to assume that everybody knows all about these. So, all right, got the tofu. We're going to start with that. Oh, well, let me just start. I have my broiler broiling. I already set it to broil, high broil. I gave it, maybe like 5 minutes just to kind of, preheat. And I also have a baking sheet that is lined with foil, and it has to be foil because this is going under the broiler. I've made the mistake and lined it with parchment paper, and you will ignite and set that on fire. So definitely foil. And because some of the cheese does kind of sort of fall off of the tofu as it's under the broiler, I did spray it. I found this California Ranch olive oil, extra virgin olive oil spray. Nothing else added to it, just 100% olive oil. And I really do love it. It's great. So I'm actually at the end of it. I'm going to get some more. But that's what I use just to spray it so it doesn't, so we don't have it sticking. Okay. So I have a full block of tofu. This is what it came in. This is the water-packed tofu that most of you probably are getting your tofu. This is a firm, although this particular brand that I find at the Gentiles market near me here in Ardmore, this one seems more like an extra firm almost, but I love it. So I do buy this one. It is organic, meaning that it is non-GMO for those of you that might be of concern. Here's the block that I took it out already. It's sitting on a paper towel. I did wrap it in a couple of paper towels, and I just sort of set a little weight or, a heavy cast iron pan or something on top of it, maybe for 5 minutes, just to get some of the extra liquid out of it. You could just do this without. All right, without doing that. Now, the package says it's 5 servings. That's just too small. So when it comes to vegetables, legumes, which soybeans are, we want you eating more. So sometimes these portion sizes on the labels are a little too small. So this is either going to be, we're going to do it in 4 servings or you can do it in 2. So a block of tofu, which is about 16 ounces, really could be just 2 servings. So I'm going to do it in 2 servings. This recipe is another one from Jules Clancy over at thestonessoup.com. I mentioned I really like a lot of her recipes, and I love because they're so simple. There's only 4 ingredients in this. And again, as always, I do make some modifications, so I want to give her credit, but her exact recipe, you can find it on thestonessoup.com. All right. So here's my tofu. You could do one of 2 things, all right? You could take it and you could cut it in half, then cut it in half again. So you'll have 4 rectangles. I'm going to do it by just cutting it, horizontally in half. Because the thickness is about the same whether you do it in 4 slices or whether you're going to do it in 2. And I'm going to do it in 2 because depending on how you want to serve this, if it's going to be kind of like an entree, then I would do it in 2. Just cut it in half like this. Let me just show this to you. All right, so I just cut it in half. I didn't do a great job cutting it evenly. So one's a little bit thicker than the other. But just cut it in half, and then this would serve 2, because this would be more like an entree portion. And if you wanted to, then you could certainly cut it in half again, and then you have more of a snack portion or a lighter meal portion. It's up to you. The protein content of tofu is, again, plant-based. I'm going to pop this under my broiler because we want it in there for I'm going to do about 2 minutes. Let me set my timer, because the one thing with broilers, do not forget things in the broiler, because within a couple of seconds, it can go from being ready to being burnt. So that's going to go in. I'm warming it, basically, just to get things started. So it's in for 2 minutes. On one side, I'm going to pull it out. We're going to flip it over, and then we'll finish the rest of it. But tofu is a plant-based protein, so we all need more of that in our diet, and it's a great, easy, simple thing to use. So it can be in your refrigerator for a little while in that bath before you open it. So it's a great source of protein. If you cut this in half and serve it as 2 servings, that's 22 grams of plant-based protein per serving, which is incredible. That's like what you'd get in 3 ounces of chicken, so or meat. If you cut it, in quarters, then we're still getting 11 grams per serving. So it's really a win when it comes to protein. And it's also, because tofu kind of lives in a water bath that has calcium added to it, it absorbs that calcium. So it's a really good source of calcium. For those of you who, all of us over 50, and that's, our practice really specializes in that age group, most of us need more calcium in our diet. Most of us don't get enough, particularly the women that I work with. So if you do half of this tofu as you're serving, it's 25% of your calcium intake. It's awesome. It's a non-dairy source. So for some of you that are struggling with dairy, this is a really good one. So that's a big win. And get any concern about cancer risk, throw them out the window. You can Google the research that's credible research that has been ongoing, and big studies show no correlation. If anything, it's the reverse. That adding tofu, edamame, soy milk to your diet actually lowers our risk. So let's dispel that one, because that's been around since the 90s. All right, I'm going to take it out. Now, it's not really browning. I'm just going to use my hands, but we're just going to flip it over. And I'm going to just do the same thing on the other side. I'll just pop it back in for just a minute or two. It's not in there long enough for it to brown. We don't really care. It's not really necessary for it to brown. All right, I'm just going to put this one in for about a minute. All right, so while that's in there, now we're going to make the topping. And this is what really turns this into this grilled cheese tofu. We're going to use 1 egg. Now, if you wanted to, you could use just, 2 egg whites for anyone who's cutting back a little bit. Not that you necessarily need to cut back on the cholesterol from yolks, but depending, sometimes we do. But anyway, so the full egg is going to go in. And then the cheese is Parmesan cheese. I've tried it with a couple other cheeses in there. It's okay. I just think it's best with Parmesan. You don't need quite as much Parmesan. The original recipe calls for 1/2 cup. I think that's even more than you need. I think 1/3 cup is probably fine. Now I put the egg in first. So that's about, if you do 1/2 cup, that's about 1/4 cup per serving, which is about 1 ounce. So grated Parmesan, 1/4 cup is about 1 ounce, which is the serving of cheese, and that's fine. That can work well into most of our diets. I know some of my clients were watching the saturated fat intake, and we know that cheese tends to be a little bit high. Let me just pull this out. But this can work in, so I really wouldn't be too concerned about that. All right, so we have the egg, and now we have the Parmesan cheese in here, and I'm just going to stir this around. I think the last time I made it, I added some extra egg white to it, so I felt like I needed a little bit more egg. I think I'm going to just add an egg white as well, just to kind of help. So what this little concoction of the egg and the cheese does, when you put this on top of the tofu, I'm just going to set this yolk aside. I'll use that later. When you put it on top of the tofu, it puffs up under the broiler, and it gives it such a great look. So, all right, so I did 1 egg and 1 egg white. You could just do the 1 egg, but I felt like it needed just a little bit more. All right, so that's all. There we go. I'm gonna set this aside. Now, I think the star ingredient of this is miso. This is white miso paste. You can find it. Most supermarkets probably carry it. I get it at either Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, or at our local market that Mido and Ardmore that carries a lot of these types of products. So it is salty, but not that salty. So tofu is so bland, and the reason it's so bland is because it does not have any salt in it. It needs a little salt. And so again, for those of you, my clients who are watching their sodium intake, this is still okay. It's not going to make it too salty. We're only going to use about a teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon total
of the miso. We're just taking the miso and we're really just kind of spreading it on top. This is going to add this little layer of umami flavor, as well as the salt that is absolutely needed in this. And I think total, it takes maybe like a teaspoon to spread on both of these. Even if you spread a full teaspoon of this on each one of these, as far as sodium goes, I think it's still only like 160 milligrams or something, which is really low. Because you want enough to give this tofu flavor, but you also don't want it to be too salty. But miso, this particular brand of miso, this is like an organic mellow white miso. It's not specifically a low sodium miso. This is pretty low. I think it's like 360 for 2 teaspoons. And like I said, miso is pretty flavorful, intense. It has this great umami flavor, really rich, and the salt just really brings in the flavor. So I'll show you this in a sec. So this was probably, wasn't a teaspoon on each one of these, but you could add certainly up to a teaspoon if you wanted to. I'm just going to add a teeny bit more to this one. All right, and this is essential. I don't have a substitute for this. Buy some miso. It lasts forever in your refrigerator. I use it for everything. I use it in my pasta sauces. I toss it sometimes thin it with a little water, and I'll toss it sometimes with some vegetables. You can use it with eggs. You can use it in salad dressings. I use it for everything because it really just, to me, brings so much more flavor than adding just salt. And it's lower than sodium than just adding just regular salt. All right, so we have, it's a little bit hot. Let me just grab this. All right, so that's the tofu that's out of the broiler that warmed up, and I just spread a little bit of the miso on top. Now, now we're going to take our egg mixture that we just created, and this is just we're gonna kind of divide this on top. So like I said, some of this can tend to, now that I'm looking at it, we probably could have just done the 1 egg. I think that would have been fine. We have plenty. So 1 egg with, 1/3 of a cup to 1/2 of a cup of the cheese is fine. You really don't need that extra egg white. It made a little more than I need. So you're just gonna put this on. You kind of want it to stay on top as best you can. Some will roll down the side. It's inevitable. That's why you're going to spray this foil, because as the cheese kind of rolls off, it's going to stick to the tray if we don't oil it. All right, spray it, or you could just brush it with some olive oil. All right, now this is going back in. So we're going to set the broiler for about 2 minutes. Here we go. Another 2 minutes or so, and we'll check it. We'll just kind of keep an eye on it, because it might depends on how close you have your oven rack to your broiler. Mine's probably about 5 or 6 inches down from the broiler, which is about where most of the time you're going to be putting the rack. But if yours is a little bit closer, it might be too close, because you'll probably end up burning it before it gets done. Because we obviously want the egg to cook. So we want the egg to cook, and as it cooks, it's going to puff. And it's also going to brown, all right? So let's see if that works. So the change here is I thought I needed that extra egg white. You don't. So 1 egg yolk, one full egg, or 2 egg whites, either one, and the cheese is all you need. Because that got a little bit runnier, and some of this might run off, and it does it normally. Most of it sort of stays on top of the tofu. All right, so this is a great way to add tofu. We're not using bread. Now, the way I would serve this is I have this huge salad in my refrigerator. I'm going to serve this with this great salad. I might even add, if I was only eating 1/4 of this, so having this serve 4, then I might add some extra beans and other things to my salad just to build that salad out, because it probably wouldn't be enough as a meal. But as a meal, half of it with a great big salad, perfect combination. I have picked up all these beautiful little peppers, and I was thinking, oh, it's a great snack if you just cut it in the 4 pieces and this is a great little protein snack, maybe with some, red peppers to munch along with it. Perfect. And again, keeping within that low carb footprint. I don't have a vegan version of this, because you might be able to get away with like vegan cheese, but I don't know how I would substitute the egg.
I think Jules Clancy might have mentioned you could maybe do like a vegan mayonnaise mixed with the cheese. Oh, it's ready. Wow. So 2 minutes, and that's it. Let me show you guys. It looks gorgeous. All right, let me pull it out. All right, turn my timer off. Look at this. Is that like the coolest looking? It puffs up and it browns so quickly. And that egg is all cooked. It cooks very quickly because that broiler's on high. But isn't that absolutely gorgeous? It's magical to me. The way that it comes out, it looks so awesome. And I think part of the reason is it's absolutely delicious, but it also looks amazing. So when you can serve this, people are gonna they're not even gonna know maybe it's tofu. Maybe you don't even need to tell them. What is this? This is interesting. So please give this a try. If you're over 50 and need a nutrition tune-up, please reach out. We are here to help you, particularly if you're starting to find that your health is slipping just a little bit and you're starting to notice some of those lab works, that the results of the labs are coming back and things are starting to creep up and you kind of want to catch it and nip it in the bud. Reach out. That's what we do. We really work with most of our clients are clients that have some sort of cardiovascular concern with elevated cholesterol, or their blood sugar is just kind of creeping up. We really want to get that. We want to get that in shape for them. So that's why I'm kind of bringing you these, particularly some of these lower carb options, because I know that a lot of my clients are really looking for that. Most of us don't need necessarily to be following a low carbohydrate diet. I don't want to make it sound like that's the case. But for some of my clients, we just need to kind of keep an eye a little bit on the amount, but certainly not for everybody. All right, so stay well till next week. Bringing you another really easy, simple recipe. I think it's our 1, 2, 3 meatballs that are going to be over a balsamic ricotta, which is pretty awesome. All right, stay well till then. See you soon. Bye-bye.